I'm Julianne DeLynn Hatton, and you're listening to Faith and Reason on the Mormon Faircast. This series will discuss the prophet Joseph Smith and the authenticity of the gospel he restored. I'll be speaking with Michael R. Ash, author of the book of Faith and Reason, 80 Evidences Supporting the Prophet Joseph Smith. Welcome, Michael Ash.
Hi, Julianne.
Would you like to introduce today's topic?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the temple outside of Jerusalem today.
That leads us to the first thing that Nephi was commanded to do when he got to the New World.
Yeah, the Lord commanded him to build a temple, and he said he built it, kind of on the general plan of Solomon's temple. He didn't have as many materials, but the Lord wanted his people to have a temple just like the people in the old world had a temple.
Why would critics have a problem with this?
The critics have argued that there cannot be a temple outside of the one temple in Jerusalem. It was rebuilt after it had been destroyed before, and several critics, shortly after the Book of Mormon came to press, argued that very thing. They said that, God wouldn't authorize a temple to be built anywhere. The Jerusalem temple was it.
So what has research shown you?
Well, the interesting findings come from a place in Egypt among some papyrus called the Elephantine papyri. And these papyri talk about a Jewish group that had left Jerusalem to protect the Persian interests basically in southern Egypt, and they had traveled away from Jerusalem. And they talk about making plans and discussing building a temple themselves. And so here was a very devout set of Jews that believed in roughly what was contemporary to Lehi, that a temple certainly could be built outside of Jerusalem.
Where was this discovered?
In Egypt, in southern Egypt, and it wasn't discovered until, good grief, probably 100 years after the Book of Mormon came forth. And so nobody really had any concrete evidence that Jews in that day believed that temples could be built elsewhere, but now we have exactly that, a concrete reference by practicing Jews that they believe that another temple could be constructed elsewhere.
Thank you, Michael Ash.
Thank you, Julianne.
Thanks for listening to Faith and Reason on the Mormon Faircast. I'm your host, Julianne DeLynn Hatton, inviting you to keep the faith.
Michael R. Ash is the author of the book Shaken Faith Syndrome, Strengthening One's Testimony in the Face of Criticism and Doubt, as well as the book of Faith and Reason, 80 Evidences Supporting the Prophet Joseph Smith. Faith and Reason is produced by Tom Hatton with music courtesy of Arthur Hatton. The opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of Fair Mormon or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You can support this podcast by subscribing to it in iTunes and by rating it and writing a review. Questions or comments can be sent to podcast@fairmormon.org, or you may join the conversation at fairblog.org.